Good morning. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and I'm going to show you a few clips here from my workout this morning with Karen. She's going to start off with a little piaffe here. And notice how she comes to it very slowly. But notice how she also begins to shorten from back to front there. And gets a good rhythm going. Begins to bend her hocks a little more. For this kind of horse that's so long in her back, this is so important for her to be able to do this. Now relax that gets really soft. So that was really one of the best she's done with that. So that was absolutely fantastic for her. And notice how completely relaxed the horse is when that is finished. And that's how the piaffe should be. These things we see today of people whipping horses up into a frenzy so they become neurotic piaffe and passage machines is just not good. So if the horse is not relaxed when you finish a piaffe, you did not do it correctly. Unfortunately, my camera wasn't working real great this morning, so I had to cut out big chunks of this, but I just sort of kept some of the main things. And she did some things that were really lovely today that we hadn't seen before, beginning to bend in the half pass, for instance. But here she begins to come up lovely into a working walk. And notice that she maintains that position of lifting her back and staying a little shortened from back to front. That is, we see her shortening her base of support these days. This horse is extremely long, and it took a very long time to get her. And of course, because of her health issues were the biggest problem. But we finally feel like we're on the other side of that, and everything is really turning around. Look how beautifully she stays in that working walk there, and actually you can see her lifting up actually through the shoulders a little bit. Remember, she used to overbend. Unfortunately, she had been overflexed in the neck when the people owned her before us when we bought her. The only thing they did with her was lunge her with side reins so tight that they pulled her neck over. But see how nicely she came through in that half pass today. So that's what we're looking at. It's one of the first times she's really been able to step under herself in the half pass and maintain the bend in the same direction there. So we were really pleased with that. And of course, every time we get something a little better than we've seen it before, we come back and give the horse a stretch, let it open back up again. I hope some of you have been seeing some of the reposts that I've done, for instance, of Ingrid Klimke talking about the importance of stretch. And so I remember seeing Rainer Klimke in the Los Angeles Olympics and how he warmed up his horse in a snaffle and a stretch, only put a double bridle on the last couple of moments, got on, rode what should still be beating the test that we see today. But you see Karen had to correct her just a little bit by how nicely, once again, she's coming up into a nice working trot. Once again, keeping that sense of lifting through her back and being a little more engaged. So she's a little, her base of support has become closer. That is, the front legs are moving closer to the back legs. And notice how really her whole neck position is beginning to change now. She always looked like a horse who just her neck wanted to go straight down. She really couldn't come up. But now all of a sudden she's beginning to change. We see how that whole position through her withers is beginning to change right there. And notice how, as well as we see that engagement on the top line, how completely relaxed the underside of her neck is. That's how it should always be. If you see a tight underside of the neck, you know, the horse is just basically being pulled over. So we're working on a few lengthenings today. Notice this is the first one. She does that pretty nicely, comes out and comes through quite nicely. Notice how beautifully she's staying in front of Karen's legs now and just staying up and in the bridle, not bending over. Beautiful working trot today. Just right there is what we're looking for. And of course, once again, when we say working trot, it means that the horse is ready to be ridden. That's why we always have to see working gaits from the ground before we start to get on them if we expect them to be able to do the same thing. But we see now she's beginning to be able to carry herself as well as being able to carry Karen and stay up through her forehand now. Really regular gaits. Notice how engaged she is through her core. She was a horse that had a lot of bloating problems, so she always looked like a pregnant mare for a long time. But we seem to have gotten to the other side of that. How beautifully she stays up here. Now that's the first lengthening there. And that wasn't too bad. She came through a little bit, but wanted to kind of go in her forehand a little bit. So Karen's going to come back. Going to give her a stretch once again to loosen her back. You know, we see people in show rings these days, they're all just fighting, trying to get the horse back on the bridle, trying to hold it back there. It just doesn't work that way. The horse has to be able to carry itself. Then she comes back and refreshes the horse's back with a stretch again. Notice how beautifully active the hocks become, nice round circles. And she was always very uncomfortable to sit to the trot, but now all of a sudden she's beginning to lift up and carry Karen, and it's much easier all the way around. Pretty perfect working trot right there. See, Karen, she feels her wanting to over flex a little bit, so she lifts her hands up. So if a horse is wanting to overbend, you can't take backwards pressure because the horse is just going to overbend. Now here she goes for really good lengthening. Now watch this one. Now it really starts to come through. Watch the hocks in this one. That's what, see how the front end is literally lifting off the ground a little bit. That's what we're looking for. That's what I wanted to show you. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. We'll see you next time.